Okay. Can I have confirmation of the agenda as amended? And I've just got to find my piece of paper here. We'd like to move up item 7.3.2 to right after Triton, so that we might as well deal with those things at the same time. So I have a mover and seconder for that. It's Jason and Barbara. Any discussion on confirmation of the agenda as amended? Hearing none, I'll take that as unanimous consent. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to delegations and presentations. First delegation is from Fair Tax, Funding and Taxation Expert presentation. And Michelle, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
John, we just have to move and second it first.
She's muted.
Michelle, I think you're muted. Michelle?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
there we are.
sorry about that. I had a little technical difficulty there. Thank you for inviting me to present with respect to maximizing government grants and funding. Fair Tax has been around for over 25 years, and we work with over 200 municipalities right across the country. Will I be doing the screen changes, or
We'll be running.
change the slides?
Yeah, we'll be running that, Michelle.
Okay, great. So you can, yes, thanks. So we work nationally, and we are national strategic partners with all of the municipal officers associations right across the country. With MFOA, we attend the events every year, provide thought leadership on government funding and sales tax recovery. We try to enable and empower municipalities as much as possible to go after funding as much as they can on their own. We recognize with the specialized sector that most municipalities are going after this funding, and our real role is to augment and complement that, take it to the next level, to get to the funding that you're not getting to. So next slide. So we do have a legacy practice in sales tax recovery that has been goes way back since our inception, and we've had incredible success with these sales tax reviews in capturing dollars there. The focus of today's meeting is the direct funding opportunities, which is the federal and provincial government grants, as well as we do some private grants as well, like Trillium Foundation. Next slide. Oh, you can skip that slide. Sorry, I had a corporate slide in there. So this just gives you a broad brush sampling. You can go back a slide. There's some more logos. Broad brush sampling of our mid and small municipalities. Keep in mind that about 80% of our municipalities are smaller municipalities because we recognize that there's a bandwidth issue. Nobody is assigned to the roles of funding in often cases. Sometimes there's movement on funds and there's very tight deadlines. So we offer that outsourcing that takes that pressure off you, as well as the risk of it having to invest all that time and then perhaps not being approved. I won't spend too much time on this, but these are some case study examples. There are more on our website. of testimonials and references where we've really taken upon ourselves. Oftentimes we start off with one project and then we build out a full granting strategy with our grant match software as our foundation. And over time, we act as a strategic business partner. So this leads to a very strategic approach for building often high access to government funding. Next slide. Just to the Brockton slide, one back was a smaller municipality, and we've been able to go after a real breadth of different types of funds for them, and over time built out a very successful practice with them. We find that the size of the municipality doesn't inhibit us going after very large amounts of money. There's often infrastructure and the like. Okay, next slide. So our grant match software, we have the only comprehensive analytics tool that allows us to streamline the vast array of complicated information out there, so that as we build this strategy for you, it acts as a roadmap so that all of your projects can be in lockstep with every dollar of money that's available. Next slide. So we do cover right across the board. This is a corporate slide. I'll just layer in. We go after infrastructure, socioeconomic, environmental, and tourism grants. So it's right across the board. I give some highlights from last year's budget. I'll leave that for your reading. I'll be sending off the presentation to you so you'll have it for your review. Next slide. So we really go after the sweet spot and only high probability funds. So we can be identifying and selecting funds that you might not be aware of. Because of our platform being so robust, we have deep insight into all of the programs out there. We have insight into when there's movement on the funds. We can pull historical approvals, so we see who's being approved for what project, for what programs. And we layer that in with your budgets and projects, initiatives, and strategy, so that our success rates are extremely high. We're in the 94% range because we have narrowed down to such a tight focus, it's so efficiently on going after the high probability funds. Next slide, please. So sometimes as well, we're able to do stacking and pairing, and that's where we can layer in more than one grant for a particular project, offsetting more of the cost. In the stacking example, we might be able to layer in a federal and a provincial program. In the pairing example, that would be complementary type programs such as a socioeconomic program and an infrastructure as an example. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, our success rates, strictly on the proposal development side, we can really take across the finish line where you're investing time and risk and maybe not seeing approved. The industry average, and this is across public and private sector, is 25% approval rate. So with our sprint approach to funding with our software as the foundation, we take that success rate to the 75% range. It goes up into the 94% range when we start stacking and pairing and utilizing over time the strategy that we build out. We're constantly populating your strategy from our grant library, and everybody has visibility into that tool. Next slide, please. So Grant Match itself is a software as a service available. So if perhaps you didn't want our full grant services, you could purchase the platform for a nominal amount of money and use the software tool yourself if you wish to still do the proposal development yourself. Next slide. And this just shows that we really tap into how robust the tool is. We tap into a tremendous amount of information, and it makes it very accurate to be pulling all of our data from. And we do provide our own intelligence with our team of business analysts, posting news updates that are relevant to municipalities. Next slide, please. So we have this proactive approach, and that's our full service offering where our team is working for you. And everything that we do, all of the deliverables I talk about are strictly success or performance fee based. So you only ever pay us once we're successful in gaining the money for you. And then the only time there would be a cost is if you wanted to have grant match as a software as a service. Next slide, please. So I'm going to just go quickly through these slides. It just gives you a dashboard view of how we pull historical approvals, the types of news updates, where you see the grant library, and how we populate the grant strategy there on an ongoing basis for you. So the idea is it's not necessarily that you have shovel-ready projects. That's great if you do, but that we are that strategic business partner so that you have all of this insight, and that over time, because these are all perspective, we can be ahead in going after these monies for you. Next slide, please. So that's just a filtered view of some grant recommendations as an example that we pulled for one municipality. Next slide, please. And the tool acts as a project management tool. So once we are working on applications, everyone can see who's working on what document, and it's a very effective tool in managing all that. Next slide, please. So the competitive benchmarking is where you can look at all the municipalities. We know that municipalities like to look geographically, and we can see what projects are being approved for what funds, and this keeps our success rates very high for you. Next slide, please. And then lastly, just our process. We're very efficient. We wouldn't be as successful as we have been for as long as we have in as many municipalities if we were just taking up a lot of your time. We're very efficient. We have a kickoff. Once you agree to partner with us, again, no risk or budget to you, then we assign our funding specialist who's an expert in the municipal sector. We have a kickoff meeting, which takes about 45 minutes with all the key stakeholders to get an idea of the history of your organization, your project, and your budget. And then most of the work, about 90% of the work, goes on in the background by us. We're very streamlined in going after any information that we need from you. We've gotten very good at this over time, so we can be effective as someone that you outsource your granting to. And next slide, please. Yeah, so that's it. This is just to say that if you were interested in the software, I find my smaller municipalities aren't as much. They like to know that we have that as a foundation, but I can do, a grant match demo at some later time if you were that interested in the tool itself. Some people like to be very little involved in it, but just know that it's available and has all that visibility. Next slide, please. That's it. So, any questions for me or comments or feedback?
Well, thank you very much. I better do a little bit of housekeeping here. We have the motion moved by Brian and seconded by Michael to receive this for information. Does anyone have any questions for Michelle?
I have one, John.
Okay, Brian, was that you?
Yeah. Well, I think Martin was jumping in there, but I'll go first if that's all right.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Thank you for the presentation, Michelle. I note one of the success stories that you talk about is City of Kawartha Lakes. They got a $750,000 fund there. What was their cost to you to get that grant?
Yeah, great question. So our tiered structure is most competitive only for our municipalities. We offer these rates, and it's 10% on the first million, and it's 5% over $1 million on a per application basis. And you'll see that I will be sending a copy of our agreement, which is very straightforward, simply committing to all the deliverables I've talked to you about at that success fee base.
Okay.
So 75,000 to get the 750, is that right?
That's right. And the way to really get your mind around this is you're going to leave off the table anything that you're working on. I mean, I would never be here to try to convince you. As I mentioned, we try to enable and empower you to do as much as you can on your own, and that would always make the most sense. Where our real value is going to be is to get to things that you're not getting to for two reasons. One, because you're not aware of the funds, and number two, because you don't have the bandwidth to get to them. That's when we're providing the value and it makes sense and it's worth it to use us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Martin.
Yeah, thanks, John. Hi there.
Hi.
Hi. You mentioned high probability funds or grants that you would go after. What's the criteria to make it a high priority? Not many people going into it, or
yeah, you know what?
The size of the grant?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a number. It's kind of like a weighted average, and it changes on a week by week basis. Because I know with municipalities, so what makes it high probability fund is if we're seeing movement on it. Okay, so a fund might be sitting out there for a long time, like small business. A small building fund, and then all of a sudden we start seeing some movement, and we get that intel for our software and understanding where approvals are happening. We have very good relationships with the government. So when we see that kind of traction starting to happen, we're deep in sight into deadlines and that the fund has become more favorable because we're seeing some activity on it. So it's an activity level, if you will. Also, of course, as you mentioned, the size of the fund. And then also, because we have so much expertise around this, we write thousands of these applications every year between the public and private sector. We know, based on your project's unique parameters, what the likelihood is of a particular program lining up with that, because we have so much experience and expertise that we bring to the table. So that's another way, and a qualitative way, that we can identify that something's become high probability for us. So that's another way. This leads me right to how we're very good at not wasting your time, because by the time we get to go after a fund for you and you've agreed to that, it's a very high probability situation. And those are some of the criteria that make it high probability.
Okay. And so therefore you can actually, high probability, you can look at which ones would definitely stack together.
Yes, exactly.
Two moving at a time, you say, okay, we can merge this later on, or so that's good. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Anyone else have a question?
Okay. Great. Well,
John, I do.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Jason.
Sure. So am I understanding this right? What kind of a fee are we paying you, or is it just a fee once you retrieve the money? Or is there any other upfront fees?
No, there are no upfront fees, so there's no risk or budget to you to agree to partner with us, and there are no upfront fees. We do ask for a payment on approval, and the balance on receipt of funds. But before approval, there are no fees whatsoever.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Barbara?
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for your presentation.
Thanks.
You were just mentioning about once approved, you would receive a portion of your fee, and then the balance would be paid once the funding came through. What happens if, and I don't know if this has ever happened, but given our current circumstances with COVID-19 and the government shutting down and projects that were in place or perhaps being forwarded, what if that money were pulled? What if they canceled the project?
Yes, and that is a great question. We have that covered in the agreement, the contract that I'll send you, and you'll see that, and it's a very fine point, but it's a very important point. First of all, to your question and your observation, we have never had this happen. However, we, like you, recognize that that's a what if that we have to cover in the contract, and there would be no fees, and if any fees were paid, they would be returned.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Michelle. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, just clarification. What would be the trigger for the initial fee, and what's the percentage? So would it be at, like, oftentimes the assurance that you're really getting it is the ministry will send out an agreement for signature. And is it at that point of signature that we would pay, or notice by letter from the ministry that we've been approved?
Yeah, when they give that notification in writing, and everything is locked down officially, that you would make the first installment.
And is that what would I don't recollect? Was it 10%?
No, so yes, 10% over the first $1 million. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And then 5% after $1 million.
Okay, same as the fees.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
I just have one more. John, it's Jason.
Yep. Sure. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just wondering to Michelle, like, how do I word this? You're going to want to go after the big grants. Like, there's not much incentive for you to go after a small grant, is there? How do you weigh that?
No, actually, because that is a misnomer. So I'm so glad you asked this question. We go after every grant, and we're catching that second tier. Our grants are between 10,000 and 13 million is the largest grant we've ever applied for. It wasn't in a municipality, and we go after that second tier. So we go after tourism funds, as an example, Canada 150 as an example. So we go after all those tiers because we have the bandwidth to do that, and we have the insight to know every little fund that's going on, and they add up. And it's actually the municipalities themselves that can't get to them because there's almost, in some cases, just as much work. But because we have the infrastructure we do, and we're a strategic business partner over time, we're not just a one-off grant writer going after one hot grant and putting it together a proposal. We are looking at everything that's applicable to you, so you're capturing every dollar.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? No, got quiet there. So thank you, Michelle. That gives us a lot of good information. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you all so much for having me and for your time and engagement today. And I look very forward to our continued follow-up and potential mutual success together.
Okay, thank you. I just heard somebody have another question.
Yeah, that was me, John. I'm in a parking lot here. There was trucks going by. I had to mute. So, with all this 10,000, Michelle, with the small loans, they're the ones that you could potentially stack for a large amount of money. Like, if we were looking at 3 small loans to rebuild downtown Dundalk, you'd have your broadband information to say, well, there's 4 grants out here for 15. That's, a large chunk of money. You would apply on them, even though they were from different areas. They would look at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
That's correct. That's correct. So absolutely, that's why our expertise is so strong in stacking and pairing, and most municipalities are quite impressed with our ability to layer in more than one grant, and it is because we capture that second tier level all the time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so again, thank you, Michelle, and we'll is everyone in favor of receiving this for information? Actually, let me go back to the normal way we do this now. Is anybody opposed? Lindsay, do we have everybody?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, then I'll declare that unanimous consent that's approved. So thank you, Michelle.
Okay, well, thanks again for your time, and I'll be sending that information off to you by tomorrow.
Great, thank you.
Okay, take care and enjoy the rest of your meeting. Thanks for having me again.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Next, we have moved by Barbara, seconded by Jason, that we receive the road management study presentation from Howard Ray from Triton. Welcome, Howard, and I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good. Your Worship, members of council, thank you for giving me this opportunity. So the Township of Southgate had prepared a road needs study in 2008, and it was updated in 2014. We were retained to do the 2019 update. It should be updated approximately every 5 years. So on the next slide, just outlining the purpose is to identify the municipality's road system, inventory it by taking into account its use, condition, geometric elements, and surface type, and assign a condition rating. It's on a scale of 1 to 10, and that takes into account the base and the surface. And basically, if you have a road you've just paved, it would have a condition rating of 10, smooth, no cracks. Condition rating of 7. So as the road ages, it's going to develop a few cracks and some minor distresses. Down to a 7, the road is still certainly perfectly operable and no concerns. Once it starts dipping below 7, you're seeing a few more distresses evident, and should start looking at some future maintenance. At a condition rating of 5, you'll have quite a bit of cracking showing up, some alligator, some transverse, maybe some minor potholing perhaps occurring, and some rutting or deformation. But as you get below 5, once you get down to a 4, then you've had patches. You'll have really some severe areas of cracking, and a road that's quite clearly in very poor shape. And below 4, starting to get down to once you're down to 3, you're almost at an undrivable stage or rate, certainly at any kind of speed. Comfort rating is more the feel of the road. It's somewhat similar from being totally smooth on a new road to some back and forth with the ruts. Anything down to a 5 is still drivable at the posted speed, but once you get below 5, you're probably not feeling comfortable driving it at the posted speed anymore. It's not necessarily dangerous yet, but you find yourself adjusting your speed accordingly. And pavement condition index is a little more technical, more somewhat a combination of the two, and a more detailed evaluation of cracking on paved roads, and it's on a scale of 1 to 100. So moving to the next slide, a brief summary of the township has 518 kilometers of road that they're responsible for maintaining. Of those, 156 kilometers are asphalt, 53 are surface treatment, which are high float, 298 are gravel, and 9.6 are earth. And those are just a few roads that are essentially unopened. You can get down them, but they're not used. So just looking at the average condition ratings for asphalt, it's 6.1, and surface treatment, it's 5.7. So that's across the board. That's not too bad. You'd like to see that up more closer to 7, but not overall on balance. That's still reasonable. And gravel is fairly good at 5.7. A well-built gravel road that you blade and put gravel on could be maintained at a 7. But conversely, you've got a lot of gravel roads that are very, very low traffic. They don't need or deserve a lot of maintenance, so they often get rated a 5, but they're still fully adequate for the purpose that they're serving. The next slide. So again, overall for the hard tops, we're at 6. What is somewhat of a concern is that 31% of the hard top roads are have a condition rating of 5 or less, and once a road reaches 5, we consider it to be structurally deficient now. Ideally, you'd be doing repairs on that road this year. Obviously, you're not able to do that, so we're looking at them over a 10-year time period. But that percentage, the fact that you've got nearly a third of your roads that are at that now, of your paved roads that are at a now need, is somewhat of a concern. I understand that a lot of them were initially paved back at amalgamation, often with a thin lift of asphalt, and that's, can't remember the exact year, but that's some years ago now. Staff have been doing a good job of maintaining the life of those roads, using a product called microsurfacing, which is relatively economical, that sprays and holds the surface, and that will prevent them from sort of falling apart more, but it doesn't add any strength. And ultimately, especially where you've got heavier traffic and especially truck traffic, if the road doesn't have the inherent strength underneath it, the microsurfacing may buy you a few years, but it really isn't fixing them. So ones that are condition rating 5, the recommended treatment is to pulverize the existing asphalt. Usually it's got enough cracking in it that it, if you overlaid it, it would just crack through again. So by pulverizing it, it stays on the road and it's packed back in, and that helps to strengthen it for the next lift. And then you put a new lift of hot mix asphalt on it, minimum of 50 millimeters and up to 75 or even 90 for your if there's more trucks on the road. Gravel roads, average condition rating of 5.7 is good. Again, that takes into account the fact that you've got a certain amount of variance, but the annual program of graveling, spot improvements where required, and ones that have some ditching issues, ditching and brushing will also help to keep the road dry. But you've got a number of areas throughout the township with high water table. That's going to have a negative effect on both hardtop and gravel roads, so that probably reflects in your overall ratings. But generally, the gravel roads found are in a serviceable condition and are being maintained that way. The next. So we did identify all the paved roads with a pavement condition index of less than 50 as being deficient in now category. And so we've priced them out for pulverizing, some gravel strengthening and paving. That does add up to quite a bit of money. So over a 10-year program, we're looking at $17 million worth of resurfacing. That averages about $2 million a year. So it's not insignificant, but again, you've got a lot of roads that have really reached the end of their surface life or service life. Also, there were 3 sections of road which were identified for new pavement. I think one is Wilder Lake Road into the landfill station. The other is Road 22 from Dromore to Side Road 3 that would provide a hard surface connection. And so, and one other section of Wilder Lake Road. So those are we're not looking at adding a lot of road into the paved roads, but those are ones that have more heavily usage and should be programmed as possible. Next slide. So That's really for your capital improvements, but ongoing maintenance of the road system still required. So for gravel road, that's regular blading, spot repair of soft spots is required, and maintenance gravel. Also, application of calcium fluoride in areas where you have residences close by. That's for dust control. And you also have to keep an eye on your hard surface roads that do have a PCI greater than 50, and that would be sort of in your 50 to 55 range, where crack sealing will help to extend the life. Spot repairs may be required, and microsurfacing is a very effective treatment there. If you get that on the road while it's still in relatively good structural condition, it can buy you quite a few years of additional service life. So we're saying that on average, that's based on a price of $25,000 per kilometer for microsurfacing, that if you're able to apply that on average at 8.8 kilometers a year to keep your roads from deteriorating further, that are rated better than a 50 now. Next slide. A couple other areas that we looked at in the overall plan. One is active transportation, certainly an important part of municipal road systems to promote walking and cycling. Urban roads should have a sidewalk on at least one side of local roads and both sides for collectors and arterials. Certainly, I know any of the new subdivisions that are being built, you're getting the sidewalks built, and you can look at, addition of sidewalks and other urban roads, and generally your higher traffic. It's always a good idea to put them in where you can, but certainly priority for school routes and where maybe heavier use by seniors is important. Biking is something that we're being promoted more. The county has just recently got a draft master plan, and it's really quite comprehensive and includes some routing, 9 for instance, through the township. So that, and also provides connectivity to the rail trail. So in terms of recreational cycling, it probably is covering a fair bit, but anytime that you do have a road coming up for rehabilitation, you can look at whether some improvements can be made to tie into cycling. An actual dedicated bicycle lane requires quite extensive improvements. They have to be a minimum of 1.5 meters wide. You need one on each side of the road so that the bicycles are riding in the direction of the traffic. And on your higher speed roads, those should be buffered. Those standards are currently being updated. I think now the recommended buffer is a foot, but that may be going up. So if you have a road, like most of your roads are in 66-foot right-of-ways, the amount of work to actually widen to provide a proper, fully signed bike lane is really quite extensive. And you can look at it as the projects come up, but realistically, it may be cost prohibitive as well as possibly requiring more right-of-way. And that's one of the sort of ongoing issues with cycling. But there are some interim measures. Share the road signage is inexpensive, and just simply the awareness of people to watch out and respect cyclists. Sharrows are the sort of arrows that are painted in a lane, which is again meant to indicate that that lane should be shared by both cyclists and vehicles. And where you can do fully paved shoulders, even if they're not full width, they at least provide some refuge for cyclists. Next slide. So I find autonomous vehicles, this is new technology. There's certainly a lot of money being put into it by some very big players. Just where we're at in terms of implementation of autonomous vehicles depends a little bit. I've read opinions on both sides, from being quite close to realistically being many years away. Certainly there are pilot projects, there are vehicles that can drive on roads, but fully driverless vehicles with widespread implementation, I think is still quite a few years off. And a particular challenge that Canada has is, of course, reading pavement markings under snow conditions, because pavement markings are critical. But as we move in that direction, at a minimum, they're certainly going to require pavement markings, and I think we're also going to see probably North America-wide even further standardization on types of pavement markings, because it's one of those things that, although it's relatively standard, it's surprising how much difference there is from province to province or between Canada and the US, and I think we'll see that coming. But certainly on your paved roads, painting center lines and lane lines or shoulder lines is something that at a minimum, and I'm sure a lot of you now all have vehicles with active driver assist in it, and certainly it shows you where the technology is going. Those are even getting into relatively entry-level vehicles now that warn you if you stray over a line and even sort of steer you back in a little bit. So with that becoming widely out there, it's not obviously truly an autonomous vehicle, but as these driver aids are developed, then safety can be enhanced by painting center line and edge lines on the roads, and that's estimated at approximately $1,000 per kilometer per application, which is usually required both spring and fall to keep them visible enough. One more slide, I think, perhaps. Maybe that. Yeah. So just in conclusion, 2019 update, we've provided an inventory, and also in the full report, I should have mentioned it earlier, but we've all the roads, we've provided maps. All the roads have their own section numbers. Each section number has its condition ratings on it. Traffic was looked at and evaluated, and developed a 10-year plan of construction needs, identifying the roads that we feel should be in that 10-year plan. We didn't do them year by year. Other priorities will work into where those are settled, but we have provided a list from the lowest, or PCI, or sort of the poorest condition road, up to the best, to give you and they don't necessarily have to be done in order. So, just because it's number 3 on the list, that doesn't necessarily mean it's done third. Other factors can come into it. But that should be one of the strong factors, as the lower the PCI is, the more in need it is for repair. And as such, that plan is really a live document that the township can update by the year as work is done and as work is programmed. And so really staff can work with that over the next, we've laid it out for 10 years, but it's recommended that these updates be done every 5 years to provide an update on what's been brought up to date and renew those recommendations. So with that, if you have any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Very informative. Are there any questions from council or any staff?
Other questions? You done?
Okay, go ahead.
You note in there that the condition rating or the average condition rating was 6.1. What's the range of the condition ratings?
Certainly your brand new roads are 10. Probably the lowest one would be generally down to a 4. There's maybe a couple of 3s, but once you have a road down to a 3, as I say, it's nearly undrivable. So overall, the range would generally be between 4 and 10, with the majority of them falling within the 4 to 8 range.
And is that is that, I was speaking specifically of Southgate. Is that what you were meaning there?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions or comments?
Barbara here.
Yeah, go ahead, Barbara.
Through the chair. Thank you, Howard, for the report and the presentation. You mentioned about traffic studies, the traffic counts to prepare the updated road study. And I note that I had it for a question to come as well, but you did mention it in your presentation. Can you tell me when the traffic counts were done on most of the roads? I'm just curious if it was done while we were in a pandemic emergency declaration when very few people were going anywhere.
No, the traffic counts were done last fall.
Great, thank you very much.
You make a very good point for those of us that are in the business. This year is not the year to be doing traffic counts, so that's pretty much all on hold.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
It would be easier to do the counts now anyway.
That is true, yes.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Howard. That's very informative and gives us a lot to chew on for when staff has starts on the budget and we start on the budget. So,
yes, that's where the real challenge falls.
Yeah. Yes. Anybody opposed to the motion? Hearing none. Lindsay, we've got everybody.
Councillor Rice, are you there?
I'm back. I got cut off, but I'm back.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yes, so I have everyone. John, go ahead.
Okay, then I'll declare that motion passed by unanimous consent. So thanks again for all your work on this, Howard.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you very much.
Next we have, we moved up 7.3.2, the roads management study. And that is moved by Michael and second by Jason. We moved that up to now that we received that staff report for information and that we approved that management study. Does anyone have any comments or questions about that? Okay.
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Barbara.
No, Brian chimed in first, I think.
Okay, Brian?
Well, I just wondered, I noticed the map is, I had a hard time reading it on my iPad. I wonder if there's another way to get that out to councillors so they can see it in a little more detail.
We can print it off, Brian, and put it into your boxes.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, it's showing up pretty good on my screen, and you can blow it up. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay, that would be helpful. Any other, Barbara?
So that was part one of my suggestion as well through the chair. I wondered if we could get a copy of the roads management study. The schedules that are in that report don't have the heading at the top of each page, so you're kind of going back and forth trying to, okay, what does that number represent? I'm just wondering if we could have a better look at it, maybe a hard copy. I don't mail it out for me. I'd be happy to pick it up at the curbside pickup. But my other question was with regard to Howard mentioned that local roads in new subdivisions should be on it. There should have sidewalks on at least one side of the road. And I know that sidewalks are being installed in Dundalk with regard to schools, and we have to consider the maintenance of those. But Howard, you also mentioned where schools are located and where there's a higher level of seniors that, I guess to encourage the ability to get out and non-formal exercise, get out and walk, people with strollers. Are we looking at that or considering that for any new developments that are being proposed? Like, are sidewalks going in on one side of every road? Maybe this is a question for Jim. When we're considering development, housing developments?
Yeah, go ahead, Jim. I believe Howard's left the meeting.
Okay.
Well, currently, I guess, Dundalk, yes, that's being implemented in Dundalk. As far as some of the estate type developments that are out there with 20 or so houses in them, it hasn't been considered in the past. I guess there are some coming up maybe here shortly, so that may be something council wants to look at. But again, if we start putting sidewalks out in a rural setting, the obligation and the expectation will be that the township will maintain them in the winter. So will we be running a sidewalk machine around to say a similar type of Uncle Tom's or something? If council's got money to spend, I'm not in favor of that at this point in time.
Well,
it's hard to manage what we have, but that's the flavor.
Absolutely, but the reason I wanted to ask it, because Howard was in the meeting, was to ask if there's an alternative to sidewalks, like a paved shoulder that would allow the plows to clear it in the winter without having to have special sidewalk clearing equipment for those estate type developments. It was a question that we might want to consider. I didn't know if it was an option, or if sidewalks are being mandated. That was my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay, not hearing any.
Martin.
Yep, go ahead. And then Martin. Go ahead, Jim.
Go ahead, Martin, and then I'll...
Okay, Martin?
Oh, yeah, Howard mentioned the Gray County cycling initiative with the trail. I was looking at some of the roads that are going through the township, and some of the roads I would not want to ride a bike on, even if they had a spot because of the traffic. Like, do we have to, Jim? I don't know if you know, or you guys from county, do we have to be part of that because of the roads that they're using?
It's the county roads that is all they're dictating about.
But don't we have a price? Didn't that show up about quite a while ago in another session where they actually had the figures of what, if it was all entailed, what it would cost the township? And it was a lot of money. We could use that somewhere else. I was just wondering if we have the option not to do it, or...
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, their proposal is basically on county roads. There was a connecting link, I think, Road 12, maybe out to Highway 6, if I remember correctly. But those initiatives of signage and that is all going to be implemented by the county.
Okay.
It's their road system, like John said, so they're the ones that have the overall say at this point, unless we challenge, I guess, county council on some of their decisions. But we have not been really trying to find some connecting routes. Was kind of this proposal in this roads management study. And again, the challenge is having the shoulders to a width that's going by the book 18 for cycling. And then again, you can see the amount of money to move ditches and that. It's pretty tough go to make some of those linkages.
That was my point, Jim. Thank you for mentioning that again.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, so just a couple other comments I wanted to make. you know, we heard that some roads, a fair number of them that are more maybe located in the former Proton, that Proton paved a lot of roads with a thin layer of pavement, and they're definitely showing their signs of their life now. And then at the top of the list right now is Orchardville Side Road and Side Road, or Road 14, in that connection down there. And we do have currently a road use agreement in place for some of that to be upgraded with the proponent, but that hasn't come to fruition yet. So we may have to consider looking at pulverizing and getting that back to gravel, and there may be a few other roads that out of this study and going forward, like the mayor had said about capital budgeting, this is going to guide us in some of our decisions and where we need to go. And boy, it's like looking at the bridge study, isn't it? There's so much money needed for this infrastructure, and it's just insurmountable for us to get a hold of. So there's really tough decisions. There's some tough times going to happen. We're going to have to look at some of these roads and assess them, like was mentioned, through traffic counts and through whether they're connecting links or they have other things going on with them, such as industry or something. So it's going to make a lot of decisions, some easier and some will be a lot tougher.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. You're definitely right with that, and it's almost like maintaining a vehicle. You don't put the money into it as you go along. You're going to put a bunch of money in down the road, so you're going to pay one time or another. So, anyone else have any questions or comments on this motion?
Yeah, Jason, John.
Okay, Jason, and then Jim.
More just a comment. I agree totally with what you just said about putting money into it and keeping up on them. But overall, I think I travel a lot of back roads, and I think our roads are pretty good, you know, compared to other spots. And what does anybody know what the cost was of this study? Do we remember that? I don't.
Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, it was 25,000, Jason. What's the budget? And that was the number that came in, so we're right on target with that.
Right, okay, yeah. I just, it was a very informative report, but I think I said it back at the time. I don't think he told us anything that you guys don't know, eh? And I'm thinking 25,000, you and Phil probably have just as good an idea as what he told us. Just a comment, so leave it at that.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Jim. No, I think you're on mute or something.
Jim, you're muted.
Sorry.
Yep.
Just trying to bring you up again. We had asked about autonomous vehicles. They're a very hot item, southern Ontario, about talk. But realistically and practically in these urban settings, you know, to have paved markings, have to annually line them. It's very costly again. And just the OGRA put out a notice there yesterday that they're going to be piloting autonomous snow removal vehicles this winter. I'm sure it won't be up in our neck of the woods, but you know, these are the futuristic things that others are looking at, and definitely they have maybe a better place in the cities. But you know, once people travel outside the city, through GPS and everything else, it doesn't necessarily run like it does in the city. So there'll be some challenges.
Yeah, I think we'll be looking for some vehicles in the fields. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, not hearing anyone opposed to the motion. Okay, and Lindsay, do we have everyone still?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Next we have moved by Jim, seconded by Barbara, that we approve the minutes from June 3rd. Any discussion on that? Okay, not hearing any. Anyone opposed to that motion? And Lindsay, we've still got everyone?
Yep.
I'll declare that motion passed by unanimous consent. Next is the move by Brian, second by Michael, and it's the annual health and safety review policy statement. And that's from Kevin. Did you want to add anything to that, Kevin?
Yeah.
No.
Kevin, are you there?
I'm not hearing any. I don't know. I'm not hearing anything.
I don't think he's on. I don't think he's on the line.
We may have lost. No. Okay. Is there comment to council? This is the one we do here. Okay, not hearing any. Anyone opposed to the motion? Okay, and Lindsay, we've got everybody still?
Yeah, I have everyone.
Okay, I'll declare that passed by unanimous consent. Next, we have 7.2.1. That's the tax rates. Moved by Jim, seconded by Barbara. And Liam, did you want to say anything about that?
I'll just shortly say that the council's already approved the budget at $7,584,704. So that's what these tax rates raise. And the key difference between this year and last year in the tax ratios is the agricultural tax ratio decreased from 0.24 to 0.218 as approved by the county.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments for Liam? Yes. Okay. Anyone opposed to the motion? And Lindsay, we have everyone still?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I'll declare that passed by unanimous consent. Next, we have moved by Michael, seconded by Jason, and this is the bylaw for the final tax rates. Are there any questions or comments on that? Okay, Lindsay, I'll get you to do the recorded vote on this one.
Okay, recorded.
Bylaw.
Yep. So recorded vote was called for bylaw 2020-058, which is the final tax rates. Councillor Rice.
Yes.
Councillor Shipston. Councillor Shipston.
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury.
Yes.
Councillor Shearson.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne.
Yes.
Councillor Dobreen.
Yes.
Councillor Frew.
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Thank you. 7.2.3, moved by Brian, seconded by Barbara. And that's fees and charges. Any questions or comments on that, or anything you'd like to add, Liam?
No, this report is just that at the last meeting, council approved or directed that the treasurer bring forth an amendment to the fees and charges bylaw to allow for the fire billing of a avoidable event for current, based on the current MTO rate and $50 per firefighter. So that is what I brought forward, and the subsequent bylaw, we wanted to make it effective January 1st, 2020, so retroactive.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council? All right, not hearing any. Is anyone opposed to the motion? Okay, Lindsay, we've got everybody still?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, I'll declare that one passed by unanimous consent. Next, we'll move on to 7.2.4, moved by Michael, seconded by Jason, and that's the bylaw for the fees and charges. Any questions or comments on that?
I had a question, John.
Okay.
And it relates to what Liam had just mentioned there, it being retroactive to January 1. Some of the charges, I think that Derek, Fire Chief Malnick, had referred to at the last meeting, the bills have already gone out, or maybe we've already been paid by some of them. How can we retroactively charge to January 1st now? Or can you help me a little bit there?
Go ahead, Liam.
So right up until now, we've provided the service but we haven't issued an invoice for it. So I believe the fire chief has invoiced for an event that happened as after June 3rd, but he hasn't invoiced for anything prior to that. So this just allows him to issue the invoice for prior event.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Liam. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll turn that back over to you, Lindsay.
Yep, so a recorded vote was called for bylaw 2020-056, which is the fees and charges. Councillor Shearson?
Yes.
Councillor Rice?
Yes.
Councillor Dobreen?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Yay.
Councillor Shearson?
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Councillor Frew?
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll move on to 7.3.1. That's moved by Brian, seconded by Michael, and that is the Blue Box transitioning timeline recommendation. Jim, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I would like to mention that the survey turned out very well, I believe. I think it's one of maybe the highest amount of people we've had on Shape Southgate, but I'm not 100% on that. But I was pleased with the feedback. Obviously, it was unanimous. It seemed that, not unanimous, but very high percentage that people were willing to pay some more to have the programs we have existing and keep them going, which is encouraging because I believe environmentally we need to do those things. But the main focus of this right now for this resolution is for transitioning a year between 23 and 25 for Blue Box and to negotiate with the pros. And we, after coming out of looking at some modeling that's been out and some other factors, my recommendation is that we go as soon as possible, because the sooner we transition and negotiate with hopefully good numbers, that we will be getting more funding than we could currently get with the 50% that we're currently receiving in that range, or what a non-transition municipality would get. So again, because we're not tied with any contracts to anybody, we're in a good position to negotiate. I believe we might as well try and get our money as soon as possible, as much as we can from this changeover. So
Great, thanks, Jim. And yeah, we've got a really good system. Comments or questions from council?
John here, Martin here, John.
Go ahead.
I tend to agree with you on this. The quicker we can get it out there, because we don't have any contracts, really. We're not tied to anybody. We have our own equipment, and that's a good thing. That's a plus, that we could talk to these producers who are going to be going through all these changes as well. you mentioned it once before about this. Do you see us going to having pickups where it would just be recyclable 1 week? Like one bin for paper, one bin for all the other new recyclables. There are going to be different changes to that. They're only going to want to have certain recyclables. A lot are going to go in the dump. Did you foresee us doing that and then pick up the waste and organics every second week?
Go ahead, Jim.
I think for the card system, the way we're set up, I don't think it's a very easy way to do things. I think we would end up with a lot of contamination if we said, okay, paper 1 week and you're going to have cans and bottles the next week. I think it would be a very polluted blue box that way. I don't see the producers have to also provide these receptacles. So with us going forward and with the growth we're exceeding, they're going to have to provide their share to pay for the cart for these new places. So to implement a 2-cart system, I don't see them necessarily wanting to invest in that. But these may roll out and change differently, but I don't foresee that, not in the beginning anyways. But I would say it would be pretty much status quo of our system as it is right now.
Okay. So I just thought you mentioned that a couple of meetings ago where 1 week it would be just recycle pickup, and if the producers bought the other blue cart, that you'd have them separated right there and then, like everything in the paper in one blue cart, everything else in the other. So maybe I misunderstood you back then, but that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, we can have that ability, and we could do it now, to do that at transfer stations to separate better. The problem is, again, with no contracts and we're not receiving funds for our recycling, we would have to kind of implement a different program change with the processor to be able to capture some revenue.
Which council, but I'm good.
But again, I think we're too far down the line going in with the producers to try and start implementing a change in that type of system.
I will. I have to go to the office at 4:30, but I won't be long.
I'll keep my ears to the ground, and if there's something changing. But I did kind of mention that if we got out of collections with
what are you getting?
Blue Box, that the proponents, they have to run around and collect on their schedule with their equipment.
I'll text you.
With our fleet, then we could possibly do garbage every week, or maybe do a variety of something else. But separating the blue box cart out of one cart into 2 streams would be difficult, I believe, for keeping it clean.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I had a question, John.
Go ahead, Brian.
Actually, a comment and a question. My comment was I note on the summary report for the survey that 92.5% of the residents that responded support the system continuing, even if there was an additional cost. That must be cold comfort to former Councillor Furlong, I'm sure. My question was, what would be the budget impact, Jim, if we in fact were to stop blue box collections and just do waste and organics?
Well, operations wise, I would say, just for easy math, we could look at taking maybe somewhere around a third or so, 30 to 40% out of operations maybe, because blue box, there is a lot of transfer to the waste management site and tip-offs, but we would be out our current funding of about close to 90 to 100,000 would not come to us either. So being that said, if we say have an 800,000 operating budget, we take that down to 600, and then we don't get another 100. So, it could be 100 to 200,000 maybe indifference with operations possible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of the motion? Or anyone, sorry, I've got myself backwards today. Anyone opposed to the motion? Hearing none, Lindsay, we've got everybody still?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I'll declare that one passed by unanimous consent. We've done 7.3.2 and we'll go on to 7.3.3. That's the culverts, request for quotes, moved by Jim and seconded by Barbara. Jim, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, the culvert quotes for the project in Victoria Street came in quite a bit higher than we anticipated. I guess it's believed to be because these culverts are arch culvert compared to what we did down the street previously with a round culvert. So that's put this one that we're suggesting to defer it to next year's budget to gain the funds needed for it. But the S31 pricing has come in quite reasonable, and we're well within our budgets there for S31 replacements.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Anyone opposed to the motion? Okay, hearing none there. And Lindsay, we've got everyone?
Yep, we're good.
Thank you. I'll declare that one is passed by unanimous consent. Next, we have moved by Jason, seconded by Brian. It's the request for TAP's 2020 capital budget change. That's 7.3.4. Jim, did you want to update us on that?
Well, we've had some discussions with staff, and we wonder at this point in time, especially with the COVID and trying to keep people separated, and yeah, we were driving dump trucks and graders around the township anyways, but sometimes we're having to send a dump truck to do a small task just because we don't have enough pickup fleet at this time. All the vehicles are out on the road. So we wondered if this was a good time to maybe keep the one that was basically going to go for minimal money or scrap out in Holstein for doing some simple tasks to get an operator to a job or to go change out a sign or something, and bring another pickup into the fleet at this point in time. This one would go to Dundalk. And also remember that the pickup in Dundalk ends up being the patrol truck in the winter. So, the vehicle isn't just sitting around. It will get miles on it. And just at this point in time, with having to move people around, we think maybe it's a good decision. We also had some discussions about should we be renting some pickups. And these have been topics amongst other municipalities in Grey County with our talks and stuff. So, but we had come forth and wondered if this was a good proposal to look at.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Any questions or comments from council?
Yeah, I had a question, Jim, or John, rather.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. I've read this report 2 or 3 times, and you know what? I get it. Staff safety is job number 1. Every day, every hour, every minute. But I don't understand how spending $40,000 for a new pickup would be better than spending a few more dollars on fuel to send a dump truck out. But did we even look at a lot of our staff drive pickup trucks? Can we pay them, a few dollars for mileage short term to get us over the hump here? I need a little more convincing, Jim. I'm sorry.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim. Convince.
Yeah, we have had some of those discussions, Brian, and talked to staff. Part of the problem is that as soon as you're using your vehicle for township business, you need to notify your insurer. That caused some concerns with some of the staff, and for the little amount of time, whether you fly under the radar and hope that nothing happens, but it wasn't something that staff really felt that they really wanted to be out there doing day in, day out at times, driving personal vehicles. I know we do it for other applications throughout the township and getting us to meetings or whatever, but this is a little bit different. You've got your car sitting at the side of the road, you've got an excavator working, and all of a sudden, maybe crunch, who knows, but they were reluctant on having to talk to their insurance about being able to drive their personal vehicles in this work situation.
Okay, thank you. Brian?
Yeah, Don?
Sure, go ahead.
So that's fair enough, Jim. I understand that completely. From the insurance standpoint, staff being reluctant to do that, I understand that completely, but I still don't understand or don't agree that buying another pickup to drive one person around is going to solve the problem in the long term, or at least in the short term. I mean, nobody knows how long this COVID thing's going to go on. Could go on for another year. But even buying a $5,000 wreck for the short term to move people around, I don't know. I'm not convinced yet, Jim. Sorry.
Go ahead, Jim.
So I can understand you, Brian, completely. We do need a 1 ton too. We have analyzed this at knowing that the township is going to be hit a little bit harder with COVID issues too. Our $65,000 for the 1 ton, we were looking after discussions during budget that may have to be a used 1 ton. And we were hoping maybe at the beginning when we started talking budgets that there might be some savings in some other areas that we could come to council and say, well, hey, here's what an actual new one costs, say 95, and we've got savings in this project over here. Can we bump this to the newer truck instead of a used for the 1 ton? But again, with the way we're in this COVID situation, where staff is also looking at trying to provide savings in other areas to try and help the budget, where it's the overall budget of everywhere where we're going to be hit down the road here. So it's just a suggestion. We can keep status quo. It was a way of some savings and also providing some more transportation at this point in time. Not every depot at this point has a pickup truck located there, so that basically would cover it, other than we don't have anything out at the waste department like we used to. We still have their pickup, but it's in Hopeville. And again, sometimes those guys sometimes have to maybe deliver a cart. Not that we do that all the time, but we do have to in some circumstances for an elderly person or some way with people who can't get a cart. So in the real scheme of things, this basically would put a pickup at basically all depot locations too.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Okay, thanks. Barbara?
Thank you, through the chair. Jim, and I might have missed this, I apologize if I did. Would we be considering a pickup truck that has a crew cab or a back seat, so that if you were transporting a second individual, a summer student, you can actually sit one in the back seat on the opposite corner, as per the protocols that have been outlined in other policy? I'm just wondering if we go this route and invest in a pickup truck, would it be worthwhile investing in one that has a true back seat?
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, that would be our suggestion, that we'd be going for a crew cab. we've seen those pickups before, even with the half door. They're not very sufficient at times, getting people in the back. So a full crew cab would be the one we would really want to seek out. We actually have had pricing from 2 suppliers that were in on bids for the last tender, and some of those are pretty close to what we paid for the one we have on order right now, and which should be in August. And the downside of all those submissions that we've seen so far, just as for a feeler out there with these dealerships, is that right now these are white pickups. So for me, I don't like white in a blizzard and a snowstorm, and this truck would be out on patrol. So white to me is not a preferred color, I don't think, for safety reasons.
Not for safety. If I may, Mr. Chair?
Sure, go ahead.
And I agree, Jim, if we do consider a pickup with it be a true 4-door, because those ones where you have to fold the seat forward or try to get in and it's a half door, you run the risk of more touch points. But I'm glad it's being considered at least. And yeah, I understand the white on the white out is not a good safety color up here especially.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Jason here, John.
Go ahead, Jason.
I guess I'm kind of with Brian. You have to convince me a little more, Jim. Other than, like you said, running a blue box or one of the bins out to somebody, I'm thinking the other employees, say the one employee's in a dump truck, the other one's in a grader, vice versa. There's not too many scenarios where they're going out to a site, is there? Other than they need the equipment. And I mean, the cost of driving that dump truck, that little bit of fuel cost, I agree with Brian, pales compared to this price. Just a comment.
Okay, thanks. Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, so in the beginning, kind of when this rolled out, we were starting to do construction work on Wilder Lake Road. We were doing brushing and that kind of stuff out there. So we were running dump trucks out there to do tree cutting, only to carry a chainsaw or whatever. But, you know, for the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've been into calcium and gravel applications. So basically, most of our road staff have been in their own vehicle, a grader or whatever. But that is winding down. It's pretty much going to wind up here this week now. So we're going to be back into going out to Wilder Lake Road for construction. And there again, yes, we will probably have dump trucks sometimes on site. But again, you know, other municipalities are in the same boat. We've heard it too. Like, I know some that really have said we're not sending our dump truck out to sit on the side of the road. So again, it was something we wanted the council to consider because of you know, budget implications. This would bring some budget numbers down a little bit. I know it's not a whole lot, but it's a little bit at least. But anyways, just was trying to point out other considerations for the township.
Thanks, Jim. Any other questions or comments?
Just one more comment, John, I'll make is that, as Jim pointed out, you know, where the season is progressing, we're coming up on holiday times too. We're going to have less employees actually on the road. So I'm thinking that might relieve or should relieve the urgency to move people around. And I'm very pleased to hear that we have a chainsaw.
But no wood chipper. Any other questions or comments?
Touché.
Okay, hearing none. I think there'll probably be somebody opposed to this from the sounds of things. So, Lindsay, I'll get you to do the vote.
Yeah, so a recorded vote was called for staff report PW 2020-034, which is the request for the capital budget change. Councillor Dobreen?
Yes.
Councillor Shearson?
No,
Sorry, that was a no, Councillor Shearson?
that's correct.
Councillor Frew?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Nay.
Mayor Woodbury?
No.
Councillor Rice?
No.
Councillor Shipston?
No.
Okay, by a vote of 2 to 5, that is lost.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your work on that, Jim. Next, 7.4.1, moved by Jim, seconded by Michael, and that's about the Southgate Farmers Market. Dave, did you want to add anything to that report?
Just really quickly, the Senate team kind of back and forth with reports before things happen quickly with daycare. And
Can't hear.
sorry about
Yeah.
this, but I had problems like this. I'm speaking in close. Is that better?
That's better.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
broken.
Yeah. Anyway, the daycare changes and rules us to have an application in that will allow them into the in a cohort of 10 into the Hackenford building 5 days a week. So that requires us to find new locations for definitely the farmers market. So they've agreed to move to the Lions Pavilion, and that's been approved by the Great Bruce Health.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments on this from council?
Just one comment real quick, John. I have heard from a couple of people that are involved with the farmers market, and they cannot say enough good things about Southgate staff and how accommodating they've been to help them through this challenge we're facing.
Yeah, that's great. You know, that's one of the nice things. Thanks, Brian. That's one of the nice things of that's happened through the a lot of the COVID things is we've had that report back from several that have been involved with trying to do things, whether businesses or individuals or groups like this. So, yeah, hats off to the staff for the amount of help you've put in. Thanks for bringing that up, Brian. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Anyone opposed to the motion? Okay, Lindsay, we've got everyone still?
Yeah, I have everyone.
Okay, then I will declare that passed by unanimous consent. Thank you. 7.4.2, moved by Barbara, seconded by Jason, and that's conference delegation request. Dave, did you want to add to that?
No, I don't think so. I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, I've had discussions with Barry Field Smith, and I think I'd like to see if we go through with this, inviting him, if he's able to get a support through that, and as well as someone hit the Grey County SWIFT representative on the warden's office for that board. So anyway, I think this is something we need to continue to advance because every week right now, I'm either working on something or being challenged by internet.
Yeah, we're right now too. Okay, any questions or comments from council on this? Okay, hearing none.
No, just a comment, John.
Go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Through the last few conferences we've been to, they don't stress enough how broadband is new infrastructure, and there should be something in place where it's affordable, just like hydro. Well, maybe a hydro is not that affordable, but you know what I mean, like a standard price. Because I know I pay a little bit more than somebody else down the road, but they're not getting the service which I have, and I'm certainly not going to spend tons of money because I don't need it. So
Yeah.
there's no benchmark for service. So this has to be talked about, and I'm glad that this conference is going ahead. And we need a delegation, so I'm full support of it. We have to help everybody. So.
Yeah, and bringing in Swift and people like Solomon Hicks from Hanover, who's been on that board, and there's been a lot of work in the back for quite a while. So, I agree. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Anyone opposed to the motion? Okay, and Lindsay, we've got everyone?
Yeah, I have everyone.
Thank you. I'll declare that one passed by unanimous consent. Next, we'll move on to the planning reports with Clint. 7.5.1, moved by Jim, seconded by Barbara. Clint, did you want to add anything to this?
Good afternoon, Council. This is a very straightforward one. It's already been approved. It's simply a matter of he wants to change the location of his outside storage. So that has to be recognized in the site plan. So that's what this is doing.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments on this from Council? Okay, hearing none. Anyone opposed to the motion? All right, I'll declare that passed by unanimous consent. And Lindsay, we have everyone still?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. 7.5.2, moved by Brian, seconded by Michael. And that would be the bylaw to amend for the site plan and the amending agreement. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, hearing none, it's a bylaw, so Lindsay, I'll get you to do this one.
Yeah, so a recorded vote's been called for bylaw 2020-060 for the Norman Bowman amending site plan agreement. Councillor Dobreen?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne? Sorry, Deputy Mayor Milne?
Okay.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Councillor Shearson?
Yes.
Councillor Frew?
Yes.
Councillor Shipston?
Yes.
Councillor Rice?
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. Next, 7.5.3, and that's moved by Jason, seconded by Brian. And that's the Emerson Martin site plan agreement. Clicked. Anything?
This is a straightforward agreement for a shop, so no.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments on this from council? Okay. Anyone opposed to this motion? Hearing none, we have everyone, Lindsay?
Yep.
I'll declare that passed by unanimous consent. Next, moved by Michael, seconded by Jason, is the bylaw for the Emerson site plan. Any questions or comments from council on this one? Okay, hearing none, it's a bylaw, so Lindsay, I'll let you go ahead.
Okay, so recorded vote has been called for bylaw 2020-061, which is the site plan for Emerson and Barbara Martin. Councillor Shipston? Councillor Shipston?
Where's Lindsay?
Left the building.
Oh, he's here somewhere.
Councillor
You there,
Shipston? Okay, looks like Councillor Shipston
Until Lindsay gets
is
back,
absent.
I can take over and we'll do a recorded vote.
Oh, you guys can't hear me. Can you hear me?
Councillor Rice?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are.
There's Lindsay.
Sorry, guys. Councillor, so I was just at the start of the vote for the Emerson and Barbara site plan.
Okay.
Councillor Shipston?
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury,
Yes?
Councillor Rice,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne,
Yay.
Councillor Frew,
Yes.
Councillor Dobreen,
Yes.
Councillor Shearson.
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. 7.5.5, moved by Barbara, seconded by Brian. And this is Planning Report PL 2020-023. Clint, would you like to add anything to this one?
I think it's a fairly straightforward report for a new shop to be located in this area. So unless there's any questions, the recommendation is to approve.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on this? Okay, not hearing any. Anyone opposed to this motion? Okay, not hearing any. I'll declare that passed by unanimous consent. We have everyone, Lindsay?
Yep.
Okay, and then the bylaw for that is moved by Michael and seconded by Jim. Any discussion on that? Okay, not hearing any. Lindsay, I'll get you to do the vote on that.
Okay, so a recorded vote was called for bylaw 2020-064, which is zoning bylaw amendment C25-19, William and Mary Martin. Mayor Woodbury,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne,
Yay.
Councillor Dobreen,
Yes.
Councillor Rice,
Yes.
Councillor Shearson,
Yeah.
Councillor Frew,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Councillor Shipston.
Yep.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Thank you. And we have one more planning report, 7.5.7, moved by Jason, seconded by Barbara. And would you like to let us know about this one, Clint?
Sure, thank you, Mayor Woodbury. Just to let you know, there is some additional correspondence relating to this application, which is 10.2.15 in the agenda. It was submitted after my report was prepared as additional supporting information by Questa. I believe Genevieve from Questa Planning is on the line as well tonight, or this afternoon rather. If there are any questions, she may be able to address them. As you can see, there's actually 3 options for this application, because it is an official plan amendment as well as a zoning amendment that would implement a consent and allow a consent to occur should it be approved. So the first recommendation is that you approve it, and then I bring forward an official plan amendment and zoning amendment, and we carry on. The second one is that we go back and request the applicant to amend their application. They actually own additional lands to the east, the 100 acres to the east, and recommend that they merge those 2 lots. If they did that, it would essentially meet the density provisions in the bylaw, and we wouldn't really have a major issue in that respect. There has been a lot taken off of this one already, and which is the reason for the official plan amendment. And then the last one is to simply refuse the application. So that's the explanation of the 3 different resolutions there. This is a surplus farm severance in its purest form. The neighboring farm wants to purchase this farm and sever off the house, presumably to facilitate the working of that farm and get that capital out of that house, which he or she does not require. So the unfortunate part is a lot was taken off of this property quite a few years ago, which kind of spoilt it for a surplus farm severance to be taken off.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
I have a comment, John.
Sure, go ahead, Brian.
I guess what we need to decide is which one of the options we're going to go with. My thoughts are that we proceed with the OPA and the zoning bylaw. What, me doing that?
I don't know, I thought it was me backing up for a minute, but I guess not.
Well, I was thinking if somebody was sitting in their car watching their phone for this meeting and a dump truck was backing up, they better wake up. But anyway, go back to the discussion at hand here. I would go with option one, primarily because there's no new development being proposed here. The impacts, if there are any, are already there. And as our planner, Clint, quite rightly pointed out, the severance from a number of years ago made this immeasurably more complicated. I was certainly involved at that time, and I remember the reasoning for that severance, which doesn't matter now, but in hindsight was story making at its best. Anyway, I'm proposing, or I'm suggesting, we go with the option to bring forward the OPA and the zoning bylaw and carry on. I'm not sure how to do that formally. I guess the mover and seconder would have to agree to that.
Okay. Mover and seconder, how do you feel about that? Jason?
Yes, I agree with Brian. That sounds good to me.
Okay, thank you. And Barbara?
It does. We still are prohibiting any additional residences. So I'm confused. I'm not confused. Maybe I'm confused. I should put my video back on, I guess, so you can see how confused I am. The options that we have, or that we prohibit that there be no additional residents, that would. Clinton, can you just walk us through those motions again? Because I agree with Brian. I'm not in favor of just denying it, as long as we're not going to allow any additional development.
Okay. So essentially, with the zoning amendment as it is now, the lot would be prohibited from having any future development on that lot. The lot to the east can still sever off that house and have another farmhouse there in the future. So there could still be more development occur in that area, but it is very limited development at that.
Okay, that's where I got lost in the options that we're allowing.
So that's why we would have to request them to change the application, because they've only included I believe it's lot 6, and so it only deals with lot 6. So we can't then go and say, oh, we're going to go zone your other lands as well without talking to them first about that. That's definitely not in the options. So we would have to talk to them about that. But if council just wants to proceed, that's fine as well.
How's that for your confusion, Barb? Did that help?
Not at all. I'm still leaning to the or that council provide direction to suggest to the applicant that lot 7 concession 13 be merged. But again, I should have reached out prior to the meeting. I'm not certain that allowing additional development, we're basically saying as long as you come and apply, then our one severance rule can be overturned.
But if I might, Mr. Mayor?
Sure, go ahead.
But by allowing the OPA and the zoning bylaw amendment to come forward, we're prohibiting any further development on lot, what did you say it was, Clint, 6?
Lot 6, yes.
Lot 6. So there can be no further development on that property. In terms of the property to the west, lot 7, Clint's quite right. I mean, we can't dictate what they may or may not do in the future, no different than we could on any other plot in the township. I think it's a little unfair to presume what they may or may not do in the future. We're being asked to adjudicate on what's in front of us. That's where I'm at. And I guess, Mr. Mayor, if Councillor DeBreen is reluctant to second the motion, then I would offer to do that if that helps.
Yeah, or it could be an amendment to do that.
Yeah, I was just going to say we definitely need to do an amendment to whatever clause we want here.
Yeah, you can't just substitute your name in for mine when
it's already been on the floor.
Amendment. But my question is, why wouldn't, I guess the difference is why isn't this the straightforward surplus farm severance that you mentioned? Like it's surplus farm severance, but it's not.
Well, that's just it. It's not, because
you're frozen, Clinton.
Yeah. Dave, can
so there's already a lot there.
Oh,
and so we are asking for, or they by the second option there, that if we included lot 7 into this, then it would still meet the intent of those provisions by maintaining a density of one severance.
Clint, you might have to call in. You're really cutting out.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll come back to my comments.
Sure.
Clint.
Per 100 acres.
The severance came first.
If you choose.
I muted him. Go ahead, Dave.
The severance came first, and that's a severance of 100 acre, 40 hectare parcel. And the surplus farm dwelling is really another policy in itself. Would either one of those two, surplus farm dwelling or the developed lot, create any worse situation for an MDS population?
Can you say that again, please?
So would the parcel that was severed way back is one activity of change. The second activity of change is different, though it's a different policy related to surplus farm dwelling. It is and it isn't, but it's somewhat different, but yet similar. Would either the surplus farm dwelling being severed now as a lot off the farm land, or the lot of record make any of the MDS calculations around those properties any different?
I believe yes, but minimally. Okay, and the reason why I say that is because right now the MDS is measured from the house, the actual source, I guess you'd call it, of the sensitive use. when you create the residential lot, it's now measured from the lot line. So whatever the setback difference is from the house, where the house is to the lot line, that's how much you would be making it worse for whatever barns were in the area.
Okay. I think where we go from here is, Brian, if you would like to move that amendment that we go for the first one, like you said, then I'll look for a seconder for that. Is that fine with you, Brian? You're muted, but it really looked good.
Yes, I'm muted. Oh, I would be prepared to do that, Mr. Mayor, if that will help move things along.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder for the amendment? And that amendment would be for council to direct staff to bring forward the official plan amendment. Who was that said yes?
Jason, I will.
Okay, thanks, Jason. All right, so now we're discussing the amendment. Anyone have any other comments on that? Okay, hearing none. Anyone opposed to the amendment?
Opposed.
Okay, so then we'll have Lindsay take a vote, please.
Okay, so a recorded vote was called on the amendment to the main motion, and the amendment would be to remove the third and fourth clause of the motion, and it would be to direct staff to bring forward the official plan amendment for adoption and the zoning bylaw amendment for approval at the July 8th, 2020 council meeting. Councillor Frew?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Yay.
Councillor Rice?
Yes.
Councillor Shipston? Councillor Shipston, are you there? Councillor Shipston?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Dobreen?
No.
Councillor Shearson?
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
By a vote of 6-1, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. And then that brings us back to the original motion as amended. Are there any more comments on that? Okay, hearing none. Is anyone opposed to it? Okay, hearing none, I'll declare that passed by unanimous consent. Lindsay, and everyone's present still?
Yep.
Okay. We've been at this a couple of hours. Does anyone want to take a quick break? Okay. It's a couple of minutes to 3. How about 10 after 3? We come back. Okay? So we're on recess. Thank you.
Not bailing hay today, Dave? Gotta cut it first.
Okay, it's 10 after, so I'll just do a quick roll call to make sure we have quorum after our recess here. So, Mayor Woodbury, I see you're there. Deputy Mayor Milne is there as well.
Yes, I am.
Councillor Dobreen.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Councillor Shearson.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Councillor Rice.
Yep.
Okay. Councillor Frew.
Yep.
And Councillor Shipston.
Yep.
Okay, we're good, John. You can go ahead.
All right. Let's call the meeting back to order then. Next is 7.6.1, moved by Brian, seconded by Jason. And this is the Holstein General Store's request for their LCBO to operate on select holidays. Lindsay, did you want to add anything to this?
No, it's pretty self-explanatory. They just need not just the convenience outlets, an actual LCBO does also need permission. I believe the LCBO in Dundalk, they don't run on holidays, so I don't think we've had this request before, but the Holstein General Store would like to do this, and I thought I got it into the addendum just so they wouldn't miss the Canada Day, July 1st. So that's pretty well it.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions or comments from anybody?
John, if I might just say that I'm happy to move this, and I'll certainly support this resolution. I can't imagine that I'd be able to walk down the street in Holstein if I didn't vote for this one.
Yeah, I hear you. It's to me, it's really we've had a few motions from the store there now, and to see them, really pushing on doing things, and it's really good to see. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. Is anyone opposed to this motion? Okay, and Lindsay, you did roll call just before that, so I'll assume everyone was here, and I'll declare this passed by unanimous consent. So thank you. 8.1 is moved by Brian, seconded by Jim, and it's the bylaw for site plan for Kinsley. Any discussion on this? Okay. Barbara, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm hoping that my audio is okay. Everyone seems to be getting a bit garbled now. So, Clinton, could you explain section 4, item 2, does this mean that the owners, the Kinsleys, have up to 12 months to even apply for a permit? Because it says failure to apply for any building permit or permit within 12 months from the date upon which such building permit would be available. So I'm guessing we're not issuing permits right now, but as soon as we can issue permits, they have 12 months to even apply for the permit. And then according to the building code, they would have up to 6 months after receiving the building permit to even start building. It just seems like we could be looking at yet another 18 months delay to getting this issue resolved.
Well, I hope that's not the case. Normally that clause is actually 3 years for a site plan.
Okay.
Because the site plan has a time, what it is it puts a time limit on the site plan agreement itself. So they want to build this new building. And so we're saying, okay, you said you want to build it. Here's your site plan agreement. Now go build it. But rather than taking 3 years like we would give anyone else, we're saying you have to do it in 12 months. Now, because they have an issue with the open storage, it's my understanding that they need to complete that sooner rather than later. So I would expect that not to take another 12 months. And if it did, then there would be some other issues involved.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. That's a bylaw, so Lindsay, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so a recorded vote was called for bylaw 2020-051, which is site plan 16-19 Kinsley. Councillor Rice?
Yes.
Councillor Shipston?
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Councillor Shearson?
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Melon?
Yay.
Councillor Dobreen? Councillor Dobreen, are you there?
Yes, and yes.
Councillor Frew?
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have item 8.2. That's moved by Jason, seconded by Brian, and that's bylaw 2020-066 to adopt policy 84, infection and disease control policy. Are there any, does staff want to add anything to that at all? Okay, it's pretty straightforward. Any questions from council?
Just one, John, if I might.
Yep.
Just one.
Okay, Barb. Brian first.
Has this been, thank you, John, has this been vetted with the health unit, Dave? Or whoever, whatever staff member this is applicable to?
I would not say it's been vetted by, but the documentation in it is supported by health unit directives.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Barb?
Just two things through the chair. In the bylaw, the actual policy, the first page shows that it was approved by council on June 17th. Policy. But on the next pages, it says approved by council on May and nothing. So the policy was approved on a certain date, but the bylaw is being passed today. Just housekeeping.
So
the other thing that I want to ask Kayla or Dave, this, by passing a bylaw for a policy, if the policy is revised at any point in time, then the bylaw has to be rescinded and then recreated.
That's
like
correct,
another
yes.
a new bylaw.
Yes.
Why do we do that for policy?
Yeah, so, well, we would just we would rescind the previous bylaw and amend the policy through a second bylaw.
Correct. Why do we do that? It seems that is for a policy. What is the benefit of passing a policy by bylaw? Just curious.
Well, it's a bit stronger council direction that it's in force and effect, especially if it relates to employee compliance. That it's been endorsed by council through a bylaw process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll turn that over to you again, Lindsay, because it's a bylaw.
Yeah, so a recorded vote was called for bylaw 2020-066, which is to adopt policy number 84, which is the infection and disease control policy. Councillor Shearson?
Yes.
Councillor Rice?
Yes.
Councillor Dobreen?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Yay.
Councillor Shearson?
Yeah.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Councillor Frew?
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Thank you. Next is 8.3, moved by Michael, seconded by Barbara, and that's the bylaw, the work from home, policy number 85. Again, anything you want to add to that, Dave? Or is that it's pretty straightforward?
Yeah, same thing as last.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council on that? Barbara?
Just a housekeeping, the additional pages of the policy that is attached to the bylaw. One said, the first page says June 17th, the rest says draft. Just housekeeping to keep that cleaned up.
Those things will be cleaned up when we put them in the bylaw book, because the original report was approved by council, I believe, a previous meeting or two, and then this is the draft bylaw version of June 17th approval.
Yeah, just want to make sure we get the headings right, that's all.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on this? Hearing none, I'll turn it over to you, Lindsay.
Yeah, so a recorded vote was called for bylaw 2020-067, which is to adopt policy number 85, the work from home policy. Councillor Dobreen?
Yes.
Councillor Shearson?
Do you hear me? Yes.
Councillor Shearson?
Yes.
Councillor Frew?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Melon?
Yay.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Councillor Rice?
Yes.
Councillor Shipston?
Yeah.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Thank you. 8.4, it's the bylaw, burn bylaw, moved by Jim, seconded by Jason. I don't know if we have the fire chief with us.
Yeah, I believe he's on the phone now.
Okay. If there's anything you wanted to add?
So I'll maybe just speak to it quickly. I just sent it off to the province and she just came back. We just made a couple, I can't even think of what we changed. We just reordered the provincial offenses. I think that was it. It was very minimal what she came back with, and I only had one councillor, Councillor Dobreen, gave me some feedback which we incorporated, and that was about it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council? All right, hearing none, I'll turn it back over to you, Lindsay, for because it's a bylaw.
Yep, so a recorded vote was called for bylaw 2020-070, which was the burn bylaw. Councillor Dobreen?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Yay.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Councillor Shearson?
Yeah.
Councillor Frew?
Yes.
Councillor Shipston?
Yeah.
Councillor Rice?
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. And thanks to staff for the work on those policies and bylaws. It's always good cleaning things up. We received no notice of motions. So next is the regular consent agenda, and I didn't receive anything to be pulled from that. It's moved by Michael, seconded by Barbara. Is there any discussion on any of the items? Dave, did you want to add something?
I just wouldn't mind talking a little bit about 40 and 43 because they're kind of about the restart and just entertaining any questions there.
Okay, they're on where are they? Are they on this one or the next one? Oh no, they're on this one. Yeah. Okay, so go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Staff restart committee's been working quite some time on this restart process, and what we've done is we put in kind of 4 grids of where we are right now, where we're looking at as a phase 1 restart to gradually get people back in the office and create customer service face-to-face again with precautions. We've also mapped out a phase 2 and a phase 3. Phase 3 being, and I don't want to confuse you with the province's phases, but we're using Roman numeral phases in ours as opposed to numbers. And our phasing ends up with a phase 3 sometime in the future that would, put really everything back to normal. But when that is, it's very hard to map out dates. We're just kind of following the direction of the province. And once we see the direction of the province, then we assess our safety of our own facilities and places that we work and see if we can really match that up. And in some cases, we're hearing other municipalities aren't opening until September at all, and some are even talking 2021, which sounds pretty depending on the premises. So just want to introduce that document, plus then 43 kind of blends into the same thing, talking about the actual phase 2 opening by the province, and there's been some impacts there. We're looking at the Dundalk swimming pool opening this fall or this summer, early June,
early July and getting that rolling. And the provincial daycare issue the next day, last Tuesday, was another big announcement. So that's impacted things. And then just wanted to report on the meeting that the mayor, the deputy mayor, and myself had with MP Ruff and MP Bill Walker. I just wanted to talk about the issues that I'd report on the issues we talked about, but there was mostly the high level discussion was on again, internet and that broadband communication service, specifically fiber and funding.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on that or first before I ask about some of the other stuff? Okay, I'm not hearing anything. Thanks for that, Dave. And yeah, I think for us getting back in business slower is better and as we move on. Any questions on any of the consent items 10.1? Okay, I'm not hearing anything. Anyone opposed to receiving that for information? Okay, and Lindsay, we've got everyone still?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll declare that passed by unanimous consent. Next is 10.2, correspondence, moved by Brian, seconded by Jim. And again, we had nothing notified to pull on that. Does anyone want to comment on any of those? Barbara?
Through the chair, the Grey County Fire Communication Report, Dave. It says that we are to notify CAO Wingrove of our intent to participate.
Which one is that?
10.2.3.
Okay. Dave,
So was an email.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was one we've been working a long time with the county CEO. The fire chiefs have been working on it, and it's just been a kind of a go around. Grey County Council, as I understand it, has approved this, and they just wanted ratification from the lower tiers. And based on the analysis that the fire chief and I did, there's very minimal financial impact, so we didn't even bother bringing it to council. It's a matter of new communication tools, and unless we were going to up our radios, which some municipalities are, and they're seeing some double 100% increase, we're not seeing that kind of an increase. So the net result is basically already within our budget, very close.
Because it looks like it's you can't really see it on that screen on my iPad, but it's about what is it, about 13,000 for Southgate?
Yeah, per year.
Yep.
But that's based on this new program. We are already paying pre-existing amounts to that, and I don't have it off the top of my head, but
okay.
it's within $3,000 or $4,000, I believe. So this is more about safety, and the amount of time that's been wasted on this was just ridiculous. And but this will bring us into a much safer position that these departments can talk to one another, where there was some very broken down communications before.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the mayor and the deputy mayor have been involved at the county level in these discussions and know about it as well.
Understood. Just to clarify through the chair, as it said that Southgate needed to notify Kim Wingrove that we were moving forward with it. I wanted to know that you didn't need anything from us, because I know that we've had the discussion and we were supportive of it.
Yeah, Kim has not ever indicated she needs a council resolution or anything. She just wanted an endorsement that we were going to go ahead. We've put this in the agenda package just so that there's clear communications what the position or what the point of the approval process is. So now we're on to the home stretch.
Okay, I probably just read it wrong then. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Yep, you got another one? Okay.
I do. The 10.2.5 Crime Stoppers. I think we contributed something on a much smaller level, but it's saying that they are asking every municipality to donate $2,000 because they weren't able to have their fundraiser. We've got a lot of organizations that, I mean, our whole community is run by volunteers and through their various fundraisers that have had their fundraisers canceled. What is the county perspective on this when an organization asks that the entire county, each municipality donate?
Well, unless the letter goes to the county, they wouldn't have a comment at all. Brian, I don't know if you want to add anything on that.
Did it go to the county though, is what, sorry, I didn't question that right.
Not that I've seen. Did you, Brian, see it? No.
I haven't seen anything of this nature yet. Nope.
No.
But if I might, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
This just speaks to my point that I've made a few times here, is I think this council needs to be prepared with some kind of way of determining what are we going to do with these requests, because they're not going to stop and they're only going to get more as the time goes on, because a lot of these organizations are strapped because they can't do their fundraising.
Yeah.
And they're going to be looking to government for funding. And unless we have some kind of formal process or procedure, this is just going to turn into a huge mess.
Yep. I agree.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Jim.
This fellow, Peter Reedy, sent these letters out to the police service boards requesting $2,000. And I told him there was no way that the Section 10 board could participate in that. Section 31 board may, because it's all municipal. And I suggested he sends his letter to the mayor and the attention of the council of Southgate. That's probably why it's in here now. Lindsay knows about it.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Any other comments?
Just one, John Martin here.
Yep.
With all the federal aid packages for this, that, the other thing, wasn't there already something out, so many millions for charities to tap into because the federal government already realized they were going to have trouble? So that there are avenues where people can go without coming to a lower tier first. So just a comment.
Okay, thank you. And any other questions or comments? Not hearing any on any of that 10.2. Okay, hearing none. Anyone opposed to the motion? Lindsay, do we have everyone?
Yeah, we're good.
10.2 then I'll declare is passed by unanimous consent. Next we have 10.3, moved by Jason, seconded by Brian, and that's the resolutions for other municipalities. Does anyone have any comments on those? Okay, hearing that. I'll move the motion. Anyone opposed to that motion? Okay, hearing none. We've got everybody, Lindsay?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, I'll declare that one as passed by unanimous consent. So we do have closed session.
No.
So I guess.
No, we got to do county report.
Right, we don't
yes.
have any for consent.
Yep.
So county report. The last meeting actually went by fairly quickly. There's been a committee struck to deal with agriculture in the county. There wasn't a whole lot of things going on. A big thing for the county was similar to us is the strategy for getting everybody back to work, and that's pretty well similar to ours. It'll be a slow process, and there's a plan moving forward. Brian, was there anything you wanted to highlight?
No, I appreciate Alicia bringing it up on the screen there. You can see and read what the highlights of the meeting.
Yeah, actually, Alicia, this has been really good throughout the meeting, bringing it up on a partial screen like this. It's really helped as we go ahead. Anybody have any questions or comments for about that report? Okay, good. Members' privilege. There's a couple of things that I've got that want to go into. One is we're going to have a bit of a parade for the grads. The county is doing on the 24th of June at 7 o'clock. There's a lot going on, and so we're going to try and do a parade here in Holstein, and just get out and see what we can do. Get out there and celebrate this. And this is for the grads, from everything from kids graduating kindergarten to moving up to the next school, to high school, to and going on from there. So and university. So I'm going to be taking part, and we'll be just going around for a little while. So we'll go from there.
John?
Yep, go ahead.
It's getting garbled between different people and what date is that parade? And you said it's in Holstein?
No, it'll be in Holstein and Dundalk, and it's on the 24th, and we're going to try it for 7 o'clock, but we'll get out some information before that.
Okay, so 7 p.m. in both Dundalk and Holstein, but they'll be at different times probably.
No, they'll be at the same time probably. Dave, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so this is a great county initiative that it's really asking people just at 7 p.m. that night to make noise, no matter where you are. So we've contacted the Optimist in Holstein, and they're going to create a parade. And at this point, we've asked Deputy Mayor Melon to represent the township at it, because we do have to demonstrate social distancing as well. It'll be all by vehicle. We may have a person playing the bagpipes either in the back of a truck or walking. We're not sure. And we're trying to do that at both sites, but we don't know. And we're going to see, we're definitely having the fire trucks in Dundalk, or some of those vehicles. And we're going to contact the OPP and see if we can have some support from there, and possibly ambulance. But Mayor Woodbury is going to represent Southgate in Dundalk. But it's just a matter of letting people know and acknowledging the students. And we've got it on Facebook. We've got it on our website. And we're also we've worked with the local newspapers and the schools to get the grad pictures in the newspaper in Dundalk for Dundalk High Point for the grade 8s, and in the Wellington Advertiser for the people, or for the young people that graduate in the Egmont School. So, that's kind of a community effort that they say, hey, we're proud of you, and just something we can make some noise, turn some sirens on, do some yelling, honk some horns, and say, hey, good job, young people.
And I think it's a great idea, and I think the rest of council would like to represent the township at their and we can't be in two places at once. So understandably, with Deputy Mayor Melon in Holstein and the mayor in Dundalk, perhaps, I don't know what everybody else's availability, but I'll certainly be putting it on my radar, and happy to, I can't be in two places at once either. So but it would be nice to have representation from council, I think, at both.
Yep, Dave?
Just the only thing we caution again is we don't want to, the social distance issue. If you want to go have a little parade in Swinton or Hopeville or Con, I mean, you can do that too. I guess the other thing that I would say is we've also, unfortunately, but fortunately, we have scheduled the Q&A that same evening, and that was scheduled before this. So staff are going to delay that Q&A till 7:15 for the allow. We're going to monitor the phone during 7 to 7:15. We'll start Q&A at 7:15, and we're hoping the mayor can get back to us, by 7:30 or 7:45, and we'll just we'll have that discussion as well. So that's where I will be that evening, is working on with the Q&A call. But we can still honk our horns no matter where we are in the township.
Social distancing aside, if we're in our vehicles, it doesn't matter where we are. And why not advertise the Q&A for 7:30 to allow the mayor a little bit extra time, and people will be more aware of it anyway. Just a suggestion. I think it's a great idea and a great initiative.
Yeah, I got Bluetooth in the truck. Well, we can work it out.
Awesome.
Okay. So I now have a motion to go into closed, moved by Barbara and seconded by Brian. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, John, can I put this question to Lindsay? I'm at a job site and my township phone is getting pretty low. Can I phone that number on my personal phone?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. That's all I needed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anyone opposed to us going into closed? All right. And we still have everyone, Lindsay? So I'll declare that as being passed by unanimous consent. And Brian, when we get into closed, do you mind chairing the meeting for a bit? Because I have an emergency that's come up. I've just got to be on the phone for a few minutes. So I'll be listening in, but I won't be able to take the chair right away.
Yep, that's no problem, John.
So let's just take a recess maybe and connect to the other meeting, okay?
Yep, we'll regroup. Thank you.